The Holy Gospel of our Lord Jesus Christ according to Luke.
Glory to you, Lord Christ.
On the way to Jerusalem, Jesus was going through the region between Samaria and Galilee. As he entered a village, 10 lepers approached him. Keeping their distance, they called out, saying, "Jesus, Master, have mercy on us." When he saw them, he said to them, "Go and show yourselves to the priests." And as they went, they were made clean. Then one of them, when he saw what he was healed, turned back, praising God with a loud voice. He prostrated himself at Jesus' feet and thanked him. And he was a Samaritan. Then Jesus asked, "Were not 10 made clean? But the other 9, where are they? Was none of them found to return and give praise to God except this foreigner?" Then he said to him, "Get up and go on your way. Your faith has made you well." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Christ.
In the name of God, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen. Please be seated. Good morning. 10 lepers. 10 healed. 1 thank you. So what's the big deal? They got healed, everybody was getting healed, Jesus was healing everybody, right? Well, it was a big deal. And the reason it was a big deal was because leprosy at that time was not understood in the same way it is today. It is a skin disease and tissue disease. If you think about things you've heard about flesh-eating bacteria, that sort of thing, big, scary, and then they didn't have remedies. Okay? So if you got leprosy in the first century, what would happen is you were ostracized. You were ostracized from community, your family. You would start to get sores on your skin. You would show yourself to the priest, and he would say, "Well, you've got the bad stuff, and you can't live here anymore," and then you're exiled. So in the towns, they were typically had walls around them for protection and whatnot, so they would kick you out. So then you had to go and live in the wilderness, leprosy and all. And this was something that people could see on you because you had these sores on your skin. And as the disease progressed, as gross as it is, it's just a fact, your fingers eventually would rot off, your toes, the end of your nose, your ears. This was leprosy. And it was contagious. So when you lived in a leper colony with a group of other lepers, this was your only sense of community. And because you couldn't work, you couldn't provide for yourself, you were left to beg for food. And the way you did that, being outside of town, as you saw people traveling from one town to another, coming up and down the road, you would have to shout, "Unclean, unclean," to warn people that they're coming close to you because you were unclean and they could catch this. And then you can shout to them and ask for alms for the poor, food, whatever thing that they could spare. And what they would do is they would just drop it on the road and move on, and then you could go and pick it up. You could not even approach someone to get something from them. This was the life of a leper. So on this day, they were probably just outside the city as usual, and they're shouting to all of the people coming up and down the road, and they're shouting, "Unclean, unclean," to warn people. But then this time, the people that they were shouting to, they noticed it was a larger group. And they noticed that it was Jesus and his disciples. So they went the extra step, and they thought and they hoped beyond hope maybe something would be different for them. And they said, "Have mercy on us. Heal us." And he did, but not in the normal way. You know, when you read Jesus' healings, most of the time he's touching, or people are touching him. You remember the story about the woman grabbing the hem of his garment, and it's about that touch. In this case, he doesn't do that. He shouts back to them, "Go show yourselves to the priests." He doesn't say, "You're healed." He doesn't say, "Disease be gone." He doesn't say any of the magic words. He just says, "Go show yourselves to the priests." You remember the same priest that kicked him out of the community. The same priests in the temple where they're not allowed to walk into town because everybody knows who they are. So it's a big risk for them to actually walk into the town. But out of faith, and because Jesus said so, they did it. And did the 9 do anything wrong? Not really. They were just doing what Jesus said. And frankly, if Jesus told me go, I think I'd go. I think I'd just listen, right? And as they're walking, they notice their skin changes. And all of those sores start to disappear, and they're gone, and they're made whole. And parts of their body that have been lost are restored. Can you imagine? And I would bet they started running. And they couldn't wait, because they understood that their life was being restored, that they were going to be able to hug their spouses again. They were going to be able to love their kids and pick them up in big bear hugs. They were going to be able to go back to work. They were going to be able to provide for their family again. They were going to be able to eat. They no longer had to beg. They no longer were ostracized. They no longer were in exile. They were completely restored to their community. What an awesome thing. But then there's that one that couldn't let it just be that, and couldn't just accept that. And when he realized what was happening to him, he had to say thank you. There was something deep within him that had to show gratitude for the enormous gift that he had just been given. And so he turns and he throws himself at Jesus' feet. And Jesus says, "Your faith has made you well." Think about that. This is no longer a physical healing. This is no longer just a restoration. This is a healing of the soul. This is his heart being made whole. This is him being made a whole person again. It's like an extra blessing on top of the healing that he already received. And there's frankly not really a good metaphor for this that we can easily identify with, but this is the closest I could come. Imagine for a moment a child that you are close with. Let's call him an 8-year-old boy, because I happen to have one. Maybe it's a nephew, or your son, or your grandson, somebody that you are close with and you have a special relationship with. Maybe it's a godson. And this godson, as he's been growing up, he always loved you to read to him. And as he's grown up, the books have changed and the stories have changed, but he still loves the reading. And then somewhere out of the blue, he just comes up with the book that he loved when he was 3 years old, the Thomas the Tank Engine book. And he says to you, "Can I sit on your lap? Will you read me this story?" He can now read it on his own, but he asks you for that special moment. And all you're thinking is, wow, he doesn't sit on my lap anymore. He doesn't ask to read these books anymore. And you're kind of even wondering, what's going on? But you say sure, and you welcome him in your lap, and you read the story. And at the end of it, he just says, "Thank you. I really love when you read to me. I love how you always take time for me, and I so appreciate you doing this." Can you imagine? Your blessing has just gone from here and the getting to read the story again to way up here, because he's acknowledging the relationship and his own sense of gratitude. It's stunning. And not only are you blessed for it, but also he is, because he took the time to name it, and he took the time to say how he felt. And it made him, I'm sure, just a little bit happier too. I have a little video to show you about this. Take a minute and watch this.
What makes you happy? Having fun? Hanging out with friends? Delicious food? Making money? Well, consider this. Psychologists have scientifically proven that one of the greatest contributing factors to overall happiness in your life is how much gratitude you show. Yeah? Think about that. Go ahead and marinate on it for a second. You can thank me later if you want. It'll make you feel better, according to this study. You can keep watching, because we read it, and we thought it might be fun to test out for ourselves. We gathered a selection of volunteers to act as our subjects. First, we gave them a test. They didn't know what we were looking for, but it gave us a pretty good idea of their current level of happiness. We asked them to close their eyes and think of somebody who was really influential in their life, somebody who did something really amazing or important for them. We had them write down as much as they could about why this person was so important. Now, a lot of them thought at this point the experiment was over, until we really put them on the spot and tried to get them to call that person and read what they wrote about them. Thank you, Jessica. We're going to have you call your mother. Who'd you end up picking?
Friend of mine, Craig Ains.
Her name is Dora.
My college accounting instructor.
Really? Mm-hmm. Is this somebody you're still in touch with today?
No, I'm assuming that he's passed on.
That's a
to
shame.
the great beyond.
You up for it?
Yes.
What would you say if we called up Dora?
Oh, we can try, but she lives in Britain.
In Britain?
I don't know her number by heart, dude. This is awful.
That's fine. I don't know my mom's number by heart.
If it's true that those who are going on are looking down on us, maybe he read my chicken scratch.
Hey, sweetheart.
Hey, how you doing?
Yeah.
You got a second? Where you at, in the hotel?
I am. I'm in the hotel. You scared me when you asked if I had a second if something's wrong.
No, I'm on this little TV show, and they told me to talk about the person that influenced me the most, and I picked you, and they're making me call. They're making me call you.
Oh, wonderful!
Hi, you've reached Craig. I'm not here right now.
At the tone, please record your message.
All right, so I got to read you this paragraph. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Go ahead, sweetheart.
All right. The person that influenced me the most would be my mother, Marlo Dawson. She is a single mother of 2. She is a very hard worker and dedicated to her family.
Hey, Craig, this is Loie. This is going to be a funny little voicemail, so I hope you enjoy it.
I'm so sorry for calling you at 4 o'clock in the morning.
The person who has had the biggest impact on my life outside of Jesus Christ, who is responsible for my existence, was my college accounting instructor. He had a joy and enthusiasm for his job like no other teacher I have ever known.
I love her to death, and she keeps me going with positive talk. She is a woman that knows what she wants and won't give up until it is achieved.
Oh, something. I don't know what. I'm about to cry because that's so beautiful. I have to say that's just wonderful.
I first met Craig on an independent feature film set in Whitefish, Montana. I recently have been sending Craig a lot of positive thoughts as he suffered a series of health problems. Despite his medical problems, he's continued to work and take pleasure in the small things in life, like sitting quietly with his wife Janine on the porch.
Your friendship is everything. And you are one of the most important person in my life.
And being blessed by having a son like you. I love you.
Bye.
Thank you for picking up. Bye, sweetie.
Before we let them go, we gave our subjects one more happiness test. Now, we mixed up and rephrased the questions so they didn't know they were taking the same test twice. For those who took the time to actually write something down but couldn't make the phone call for whatever reason, we saw happiness increase between 2 and 4%. Good, but not exactly mind-blowing. Now, for those who actually picked up the phone and personally expressed their gratitude, we saw increases between 4 and 19%. So either way, expressing your gratitude will make you a happier person. But you want to know something really interesting? The person who experienced the biggest jump in happiness was the least happy person who walked in the door. What does that mean? That means if you're having a particularly tough time, trying this out will more likely have a greater impact on you. Trust me, I'm in a lab coat.
Expressing gratitude will actually make you a happier person. You think that's true? Have you ever tried it? Well, let's take that to a whole new level. We've talked about in our relationships. Now, what about in our relationship with God? How do we express gratitude there? Certainly by coming to worship on Sunday morning and taking some time and being in His presence and saying thank you and worshiping and singing with a beautiful choir and participating in the prayers. All of that is great. But Jesus gave us 2 commandments. Love God. Love your neighbor. So the other way that we express thanks to God is how we relate to one another. And at St. Matthew's, we do a pretty good job of that, don't you think? We do a lot in the community. We've completely transformed outreach into ways that I don't think any of us ever would have dreamed. We have phenomenal community events like the Oktoberfest last week. That was incredible, wasn't it? Always a great event, time to sit down and you get to know folks on a different level. You get to catch up with old friends. All of it is so very good. We do pastoral care. How many people have gotten a meal when you've needed it? People have brought you a meal when you needed it, or you've taken a meal to somebody, and that feels so good, and it's part of how we take care of one another. And how we take care of one another is absolutely critical to our mission of knowing and sharing God's love, and how we do that. And do we do a good job? Most of the time. I heard a story this week of somebody when they left church. Today at the Peace, 2 people near me wouldn't even shake my hand. And I could tell another 2 weren't happy about it. And I was going to go over to somebody I knew, but honestly, I lost the courage. I don't go to church to be ignored, and I shouldn't leave feeling worse than when I came in. I've never had people do that. Even Catholic churches shake your hand. Quote, it's a quote. I almost left before communion, and I had to hold back from crying. I realize some people know each other better, but maybe they should be reminded that the point of the peace, and that you don't skip someone because you don't know them. They all hugged each other. That happened here in the 9:15 service last week. So when I heard that, obviously, I was upset, distressed, appalled, enraged, you name it. I had all the gamut of emotions. So I did what I always do. I try to fix it, because I'm a fix-it person. Even though you can't always fix everything, Lord knows I try. So I sent an email describing this with the quote from the person that wrote that to about 70 people. These are vestry members, people who serve on the altar, people who help with coffee hour, people that are volunteer and are invested here in some way. Somebody that I can say, hey guys, what are you doing to? And they're not going to be offended by my question. And so I wrote this, and most of the responses were what I expected. They reflected the same thing that I was feeling, people that were really upset, and they were promising to reach out to more people and to be more intentional during the peace, and all of the things that I really wanted to hear, and it was a great thing. But out of the responses that I received 17 stories of the same thing, where these people had experienced that same thing. So this was not an isolated incident. This wasn't just one person having a really bad day. It wasn't just a bad confluence of circumstances that really doesn't ever happen. Apparently, it happens. Not all the time, but enough that a lot of people responded with those stories. And that's not okay. That's not who we are. That's not who we want to be. That's certainly not who we are called to be. And when we think about all that God has given us and how much we depend on Him throughout our lives at different points more than others, if we're really honest about it. How is it that we give thanks to God, and yet the only people we talk to are the people that are close to us? The only people that we communicate with are the people that we know, or the people that we like. What about the people we don't know at all? What about the people that seem a little strange? There's some of us that seem a little strange. What about that? Because this commandment to love your neighbor, when it comes in the context of the parable of the Good Samaritan and the question of who is my neighbor, and the neighbor is not your next door neighbor, and the neighbor is not the people you know, it's always the stranger, the person in need. And we don't know what everybody comes here with. And we all have junk, and we all come here with stuff sometimes. And there are times I can tell you that, I'm not in the mood, it's raining, it's dark, do I really need to get out of bed? I get it. I'm an extreme introvert. I don't know if you know that, but I am. And sometimes being as personable as I need to be here is really hard. And sometimes, frankly, it's really easy to just talk to the people that I know well and talk to the people that I don't have to be happy in front of all the time and I don't have to be on. It's just easy to just be comfortable. And I get that. I get that. But what this was for me is a call and a reminder that it's really not all about me. And that sometimes I have to set my discomfort and my junk and my stuff that I come here with aside for the entire 2 minutes that the piece takes, if that, and just extend myself to someone I don't know in a warm and loving way so that they feel welcome, so that they don't show up in church with whatever they've brought, where they're trying to find a place where they can find themselves and find the love of God, and then they, oh my goodness, don't find it in this place. Are you kidding me? We cannot be that, because all of the stuff that we do, the community stuff, the outreach stuff, the backpack buddies, the link pantry, the pastoral care, the taking the meals, all of the stuff that we do for one another counts for absolutely nothing if we can't even be kind for 2 minutes on Sunday morning. I was told after the last service about, it was another church where the parking lot was really small, and these people were visiting there for a weekend, and they had this one little narrow exit to get out of the parking lot. And so they had this wonderful service, and then they went out, and everybody got in their cars to go home, and it was a traffic jam to get out, and then the people started with lots of words that we do not use, if you know what I mean, and gestures that are not friendly. And you know what the priest said the next Sunday? You can't even get out of the parking lot. And that's right. I mean, if we don't start it here and we don't love each other here, what in the world are we doing with all this other stuff? We've got to do this here. And do we want to be one of the 9, or do we want to be the one? Do we want to be one of the 9 that does what we're told, and yeah, we're fine, and we're going to do, and we're going to go ahead, and yeah, it's very nice, and we're going to go on about our lives? Or do we want to be that one that has something in us that must say thank you to God for what He has done? And how is it that we do that? And can we, at the very least, start with a kindness and a smile and warmth towards each other, at the very least, and then throw our whole selves into all of the other stuff that we do, and the tutoring and the backpack buddies, and then the pastoral care, and worshiping together in a way that is meaningful, and offering ourselves to God wholly, because we've been made whole, completely healed, not just on the outside, but on the inside. That's what it's all about. Amen.